never give up. I never give up. I never give up.
Hi guys, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Another fantastic day for an interview, and I've got Laura Petracek with me. Laura is a woman who has been able to focus her practice on living in the moment. And this is such a skill that needs to be practiced, and we need to be taught how to do it. Yet so many people actually never get the privilege to do so. They are on their rat race, they are on their hamster wheel going, rather than stopping and actually learning a bit more about themselves and using this gift of introspection and living and focusing right now on the here and now. They're missing out on actually using this gift in their life to enrich their life, to make their life that life that they really want to live, so that they don't have to escape their reality. And Laura is here today with us to actually talk about dialectical behavior therapy, which has at its core to live now. And that is beautiful. So let's live now with Laura Petracek. Welcome to my show.
Thank you, Stephan. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
When did you get initially exposed to behavioral therapy, dialectic behavioral therapy?
So I was initially exposed to DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, probably about 10 or 12 years ago. There was an in-service training about DBT, and then I went to a couple of professional workshops. And then personally, as a client, got introduced to DBT about 4.5 years ago. And I went through a DBT program myself as a client.
And that's the most powerful thing for us to do, isn't it? When we are leaders within the field, to suddenly get exposed to be recipients of the exactly same thing that we are sort of talking about and experiencing. So challenge, and suddenly...
Well, I don't think it's a challenge I would have chosen necessarily unless I needed it. I mean, I talk in my book that I went through a very deep depression and despair after my only daughter left home for college. And at that time, I think I was around 40 years clean and sober, and just nothing was working. I'm also in recovery. I have bipolar disorder, and that was making things even a little bit more difficult for me. And so my psychiatrist suggested, initially they were trying this new, type of treatment for depression that backfired and triggered my mania and just unfortunately made things worse. And then he suggested I go through their 6-month DBT program. And so I said yes. And that's how I personally got involved with DBT. Even though intellectually I was very familiar with it. Yeah.
Did you recognize your own symptoms at that time?
Well, I definitely recognize my mania symptoms. Yeah, because
When was the original diagnosis made of you being
when I was 3 years clean and sober. So I was 21.
Cool.
And it was horrible. I was so scared. I was crying more and more. I was going to 5 meetings a day and feeling worse. And I called my sponsor in the middle of the night and said, because I was feeling suicidal and hopeless. And she took me to a rehab, even though I hadn't relapsed, but I was afraid to go to a psych ward. So, and that's where they did a bunch of tests. And at that time, it was called manic depressive illness. And now it's called bipolar. And then I'd been, I didn't have any issues. I had issues, but not a manic break until like 4 years ago because of this. It's called transcranial magnetic stimulation. And that totally backfired. So it made things worse. And So
That's
yeah, I kind of grabbed on, like with AA, they say, grab on with both hands and get in the middle of the lifeboat. And that's pretty much what I did with DBT for my mental health.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. But it only shows that there are so many modalities out there, and
Mhm.
many of them are potentially life-saving, as so
Yeah.
many proponents of these expert inputs will testify. And it's absolutely fine. That's normal. But it is not right for people to sort of think, oh, I go to one doctor, he will make a diagnosis, then he will treat me, and there's a magic pill, and it's going to be all fine. And then a week later, I'm all happy. Yeah, about that doesn't tend to work.
Mm.
And it's intriguing because here you're a psychologist for many, many years. You have been exposed, you would think, about to many uh, different therapy approaches. Um,
Mhm.
what made DBT different than the stuff that you previously
Yeah.
used? Because no doubt, had I spoken to you 20 years ago, you would have given me a completely different insight and would have given me, no, that's how we deal with depression. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
So what were some of the approaches you had previously used in your professional field?
Um, well, one huge difference is that DBT you're in a group.
Mm,
Now, AA 12-step is in a group. And so part of the beauty of recovering or healing in a group is learning that we're not alone.
mm,
Other people are like me. We learn from other people, they learn from us.
mm,
And so DBT is a group format,
mm,
which, the group in and of itself is healing.
mm,
Um, so previously, I mean, not previously, there is a lot of different modalities for treating depression or anxiety. But this one, DBT helps with emotional dysregulation. That was the main challenge I was facing, and that's why the DBT was recommended.
mm,
I didn't have that 12-step, they call finding that even ground. Or my first sponsor said, wear the world like a loose garment. Well, I was doing anything but when I had been triggered into this mania. I did not wear the world like a loose garment. It was not a good situation. But DBT teaches us how to get to that place as the 12 steps do in terms of recovery.
And I think there is all these programs have got some sense, and we sometimes think, oh, there's this one program that has worked for me, brilliant, that's my program. Not realizing that actually you are growing, you are changing in your own right. And whilst one program or one approach might be really, really good for you right now, maybe in 2 years'
Right.
time, you have developed into another person. Maybe new challenges came along that maybe
Mhm.
um, bring out the need for another treatment that is maybe less focused on right now, but maybe it could be something that needs to address your PTSD, and maybe there are
Right.
some sub therapies that might then come out for that.
Exactly.
So it's so important to see that all as a continuum of a journey, and a journey that leads through all parts of the world. There are times when you need to climb a mountain and you need some the proper gear to get up the mountain. There are other times when you have to walk
Mhm.
through a desert. Well, if you have your mountain climbing gear on and everything to help you climb a mountain, but you now need to walk
Right.
through the desert, it doesn't work so well. So things change, and
Yes.
therefore to actually be exposed to a
Mhm.
new approach, even if you guys have been dealing with other systems, well, that's beautiful.
Right. Exactly.
Your DBT was originally developed for patients with borderline personality disorder. Um,
Right.
with that kind of background, how does it come? Does it that it works so well for other other folks who don't have their wiring wrong in a hardwired approach?
Yes. Well, they've done, Dr. Linehan and her crew have done a lot of research, and other psychologists have started applying the 4 different modules and modalities and tools. So for DBT, for trauma, DBT for anxiety, DBT for depression, DBT for overeating, because a thread that kind of runs through all of those diagnoses is emotional dysregulation. And that's what DBT targets. So I think regardless of the diagnosis, at least for the most part, DBT, and now it's being applied to drug and alcoholism. More and more treatment centers are using DBT as part of their modality and treatment. And that's probably only within the last 3 or 4 years.
Which is absolutely beautiful that that is coming on, because I have myself gone through a AA or 12-step program, shall I say, and that was incredibly helpful to me to deal with alcohol that I was using to escape my reality. So then I was sober. Now what? And it was then that actually the 12-step program fell a little bit short. Having said that, I exposed myself to many other approaches to doing. I run this show, so therefore I get exposed to different ways of thinking. And with every single show that I do, I learn something new. And I learn something that maybe I can use to become a better version of myself. And I think that is the privilege that we have got when we are in sobriety, because we actually can move forward and can actually really figure out who are we. And it's a very convoluted and meandering path, I can tell you that.
It's not a straight trajectory.
No, is it?
No.
Oh dear. So when you got exposed to DBT, what was your trajectory? How did it work out for you? Here you were in this manic state. And for those of you who are not so sure what we're talking about, there is a certain kind of level where we maybe say, hey, this is really a normal mood, not too high, not too low, your beautiful set point. When you have got the bipolar disorder, means that you're cycling through periods that are very, very active, hyperactive, crazily hyperactive, and then periods where you're really, really down and out. And those hyperactive, crazy moments, and crazy is a weird word to use, but I mean, I just want to talk plain language here. It is really, you are out there, you are going 1,000 miles an hour. You're typically talking very, 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 very fast. And I need to get myself, oh, please, I need a Porsche. No, I want to buy 2 Porsches. And then let me drive at 120 miles an hour to go shopping, and then crash the car. It doesn't matter. I buy another car. And it's beautiful. That is the pace and the chaos of going through a manic episode. And it's brutal. People are incredibly affected by it, especially when then things start going wrong. Were there moments like that with you, or was it?
I actually was in the beginning of my book. I'll briefly talk about pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. In 1979, just shy of 3 years sober, my emotions began to unravel. I put security deposits on 3 different apartments. My thoughts spiraled out of control and were not coherent to those around me. I was talking in what they call word salad. People at AA suggested I attend more meetings, work another step, or sponsor more people. I understood they meant well, and I took their suggestions, but I sank deeper into despair. I became more depressed and woke up every morning sobbing. I was very fortunate to have sober women and men in my life, including my sponsor, who lovingly and without judgment encouraged me to get outside help. One night, feeling suicidal and hopeless, I called my sponsor at 3 a.m. She brought me to a safe place, a rehab. What if I was both crazy and an alcoholic? I was afraid of going to a psychiatric ward. After taking a series of psychological tests, the psychiatrist diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. At first, I was resistant to taking the medication because I had heard it said in the rooms that if you take medication, it doesn't qualify you as being sober. And this is back in 1979.
Okay.
Finally, I agreed to accept that medication could help me. The psychiatrist put me on lithium and began to reduce the symptoms of mania and alleviate my depression.
Beautiful.
So yeah, the manic, and then it comes again 30 years later, I'm going along. And then when this particular treatment, TMS, backfired or triggered my mania, that was even a more scary time than when I was 3 years sober. Yeah.
Because you think you got it all together. You think, yeah, okay, I'm just a bit low. And suddenly this big black box, when we start messing around up here, can actually, interesting things can happen.
Yes.
And again, it's important that we recognize that there was a damn good reason that your treatment providers were suggesting this approach. It's not that that we doctors sort of wake up one morning and sort of think, okay, how can we stuff up another life? Let's see. Trust me, no, that doesn't happen. But sometimes tablets, sometimes non-medication therapies can all backfire, can all have side effects, or can very much change the whole picture. Sometimes new things come up. So whilst that therapy and that treatment might fit well with a diagnosis that you have got or a problem that you have got, you might have a number of other problems that suddenly raise their ugly head. So it's just good to say that, wow, okay, someone tried something, it didn't work, cool, now what's the next step? Rather than saying, oh, it should have worked, because not, it's all your fault, so go away, I don't want to know. Obviously people were looking out for you there.
Yes.
So I wonder, when you were initially exposed to DBT, what were sort of the insights that struck you? Because you knew it beforehand.
Right.
And suddenly you get exposed to it and you think, oh, come on, I know all of that. What made it different?
Yeah, that was kind of my attitude in a sense. Or I could run it better than you are.
Yeah, exactly. We are this arrogant, aren't we?
Yeah. But I think what really, a few things. I mean, hearing other people share their story, I was like, oh, that's me, or oh, that's me, and their story wasn't about alcohol or drugs. It was about emotional dysregulation. And I thought, well, I'm, 40 years clean and sober. So this, alcohol or drugs aren't the problem that's causing this. So, so that was one thing. And then another was they give you homework assignments every week. And, I started practicing the tools I was learning. And lo and behold, my life started getting better.
Funny that is, isn't it? Exactly.
It's funny how that works.
Take action.
Yeah. Well, actually, listen to what to allow ourselves to be directed.
Yeah.
Because even being in sobriety, I can be very willful. So
so true.
I know that's a new one for people, but anyway, not really. I'm just teasing. But so that made a big impact. And I think honestly the biggest selling point for me was unfortunately my bipolar disorder. Even though I wasn't manic, there were still symptoms over the years. And it affected my relationship with my daughter. and we were somewhat estranged at that time. But now we're really close again. And I mean, it's taken like 5 years, but these tools have really helped to not just rebuild my relationship with her or build it better, but also, you know, my relationships in general. So that's, you know, another thing. But that's a big
that's a strength, isn't it? By working on your
right.
regulation of your emotional regulation, and by taking time out to live in the moment, you are learning the skills of listening. You're learning the
Yeah.
skills of actually asking yourself, hang on, what you just said, did I hear that right? Rather than immediately responding, like you know, a Pavlov's dog.
Reacting.
And that's right, exactly.
Yeah, I was a big reactor. I was a big atomic reactor. I was not a very good responder. I was, you know, so
Good. Yeah.
and DBT tells you, you know, go back. So
I think that's so important. There are so many practical applications that are so important. Example of them 2 days ago, I walked into theater, and the very first thing that the theater boss did told me, okay, now we are starting at 8:15. And I heard that as you're late. And I got really pissed off. Not a good morning, not nothing, etc. And I thought, what the fuck? I was starting to steam. There's probably the kind of frown come on my face. But I caught myself, and I turned around to my assistant and sort of said, that really pissed me off now. And I actually verbalized my emotions. And then she told me the backstory, where that statement came from. And it was basically all the nurses had whinged to her that the surgeon is not there, blah, blah, blah. Complete different story. But
yes,
I could have gone
then
off
that you
cocked.
put in there.
That's right. And
Yeah.
that was a very beautiful, beautiful insight. And I was grateful for that. And I made a point of feeding back both to the theater manager as well as
Yeah.
to others about that particular insight. So to just spread the waves, to actually say, hey guys, that just happened to me. So just be aware. And maybe, just maybe, that day I put a bit of mindfulness and a bit of DBT into their head by just actually pointing that out. So that's the
Yeah.
power of using that in
Yes.
everyday's life. But you need to
Yeah,
practice
checking it out.
Mm.
You know, because we tend to, like one of the homework assignments, actually it could be weekly, is a thought record. So here's the incident. You know, here was our thought about the incident. And that's where we primarily get tripped up. And then what was our behavior following the thought? And then how was our feeling? So the incident, we started at 8:15, your thought, oh, she's, you know, reprimanding me. And your behavior or feeling angry. And then getting the information, calming down, and then your feeling is not so upset. And so we tend to fill in the gap or fill in someone's motivation. And unfortunately, for most of us, we default to the negative. We rarely assume positive intent.
Nice.
We usually, especially alcoholics or addicts, we assume negative intent. And so part of one of the exercise was, you know, you're not a mind reader. That's one of the cognitive distortions, is being a mind reader. There's 8 altogether. So ask them. So then that was big, you know, that wasn't that easy to say, you know, we had this conversation, that was this what you meant? Because this is how I took it. And they're like, what? No.
Exactly.
You know, but 9 times out of 10, we believe what our assumption is and then act on that assumption. And then we're on a whole different road than what the person we're communicating with. So
very nice.
My relationships got stronger or cleaner, I guess is a better word. checking out things, assuming positive intent. Yeah.
Beautiful. Give us a sneak preview on the other sort of insights, the other powerful kind of questions or ways of thinking that DBT entails.
Okay. So, DBT has 4 modules. You talked about meditation or mindfulness, and that's learning how to meditate, both formally, like let's say listening to Tara Brach tapes, but also informally, following your breath, meditating in a group. I find I can meditate a lot longer in a group. Interpersonal effectiveness, that's what I was just talking about. And they really explain how to interact better with people, meaning the module includes teaching skills to attend to our relationships, to balance our priorities versus demands, balancing our wants with our shoulds, cultivating awareness of mastery and self-respect. So then, like, several questions to kind of ask yourself. Is this a priority? Let's say, I had plans with my daughter and then someone else said, do you want to do something else? Is it very important? Increase the intensity by asking or saying no. So it's like, wait, if I said no, that wouldn't work. That would not be good. The relationship, is it weak, tenuous, fragile, or injured? Then you need to put more attention to it. And self-respect, is it on the line? So if I do go to, lunch with this person, even though I already had made plans with someone else, that wouldn't be good for me. And then it also talks about maintaining relationships. So again, it's almost like doing an inventory. Like, you have a circle. So the people you're closest to are in the inner circle, and then you keep going out. And then you use the tools depending on the level of intimacy. So maybe it's just a casual acquaintance, like a newcomer that met you at a meeting, called you and said, want to have coffee. And you're like, well, I have a podcast scheduled at that time. I can't. And they say, well, I'm afraid I'm going to drink. And then you're like, well, to yourself, I'm not going to allow myself to be manipulated. I'm going to, you could call so-and-so and get back to me. I want to hear that you're okay afterwards. So, because to me, I would just drop everything. I was the fixer,
Oh, please, I'm laughing here because ultimately I felt exactly the same. Everyone else's problems, by fixing them, I was making myself feel good. The external validation, and I was running away from dealing with my own problems.
And our own feelings, right?
Absolutely. And it's just, oh God, the moment you say it, I sort of flash back and remember, I think, oh God. And it's still, we've got the same traits. Still, I mean, they don't just go away. But with us being actually mindful, with us actually catching ourselves earlier and earlier by practicing this insightful life, this intentional life, suddenly we can catch ourselves earlier and earlier, and you're not making wrong decisions that you later regret. But instead, you rather say, okay, let's stop for a moment here. What's that feeling in me? Anger.
Right.
Okay, right.
Right.
Fall back. Hello, nice anger. Good anger. Nice to see you again. Is it appropriate that you're here today? Yeah, of course. Yes, of course. Because they did that to me. Therefore, look what they did to me. We need to have a drink. Yeah, about that. Oh dear. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So it's so wonderful to actually have that as a focus. So I think DBT.
There's some other, there's, excuse me.
Oh,
There's
sorry,
one
no.
module, Stephan, it's called distress tolerance, and
Right.
it teaches distress tolerance skills. So one of the skills is called turning the mind
Mhm.
or distracting yourself.
Yeah.
So I have, I go on long walks at times, and then my mind, I don't know, starts going. And then I have like this mantra. I do the 3rd step, 11th step. No, 3rd, 7, 11 prayer, prayers to distract myself from wherever my crazy mind is going and get back on track.
Yeah.
Another skill is half smile, which at first I didn't really understand it. And it seemed like, why am I going to fake smile? That sounds silly. But actually, it helps neutralize and possibly lessens the escalation of certain feelings, like feeling down, annoyed, upset.
Yeah.
And I have found it really helpful in meetings when I'm beyond bored and I just have this half smile. So it looks like I'm interested and pleasant, and it helps. It's a way, and it's also very good during tough conversations. So instead of having this scowl on my face, breathing, listening with the half smile, so I'm not totally pushing the other person away.
That's probably something I need to work on. In all fairness, that is, you. Sometimes I carry all my emotions straight in my non-verbal communication, straight on my face.
Yeah, a lot of us do.
The hairy eyeball. Okay. So so true. So there's something to be said about that. I would go even one step further. You are basically, you have to do some quite hard work to be depressed. So, for example, if you're depressed and normally sitting down, well, you can't be normal. It doesn't feel right to be sitting like that. You have to sort of slouch forward. You have to make sure that you breathe very shallow. You have to really focus on the misery in life. You have to probably let all emotions go out of your face. So there's a lot of work to be involved with that. Now, if you say, okay, yes, you're feeling down and out, but now I want you to do the opposite. I want you to sit up, even poke your chest out, like in a hero stance. I want you to look up and now put a smile on there, a really big, stupid smile. Arr! And now
That is called opposite reaction. And that is a skill.
Absolutely. So you are changing your state. You're changing whatever you are doing there. And suddenly it becomes so much harder to be depressed when you're grinning into the air in a superhero stance. And you have interrupted a pattern. You have learned what just a simple series of movements can do to you.
Yeah. Exactly.
How cool.
And that's why the same thing with the half smile. They've done a lot of research how this releases endorphins and lifts your mood, and the opposite reaction also helps a lot in our interactions with people. Like, for example, I was probably like I guess it was longer. Yeah, they just had their anniversary. My niece, at her wedding about 9 years ago, I ran into my sister and we hadn't talked in like 3 or 4 years. And she, I don't know, she was talking, saying something, and I, excuse me, I just felt myself getting angry, like I wanted to get into it. And then I remembered that skill, opposite reaction. So instead of arguing, I started laughing hysterically.
Excellent. Ooh.
But then she started laughing like, what are we talking about? Like, how important is it? What are we? I haven't seen you. Come here, give me a hug. Why start
Nice.
that?
Oh, what an outcome. Look at that.
Yeah, it really was. And that was new for me because I would have gotten into it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, you said this and I said that and da. To just put the needle on the record for those kind of discussions.
Well, that's right. That's right. What you need to do is take a big screwdriver onto the vinyl vinyl for those people who are a bit younger. It was a weird, funny thing that you put onto a turning table, and there was a little needle, and you suddenly had sound coming out. Very, very cool shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So vinyl, but the problem is if there's a scratch on it, then this song will never sound the same again. And
That's
if you
right.
now go with a
Exactly.
really big screwdriver on there, well, it's really, really hard for you to feel in the same way again.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
here's your chance. So this is something that you can practice regardless of
Exactly.
in which situation you are in now. You're essentially
Mm-hmm.
practicing to be a better human. You're trying to be the best version of yourself, and that's where DBT comes into its own, because it allows you to do so. And guess what? You don't have to be quotation mark crazy, whatever kind of label you put on yourself, to just actually learn to live intentional in this moment. Now that's a
Yeah.
gift. That's where
Yeah.
many meditation practices are putting hours and hours, days, weeks, months of meditation in to achieve that. And
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe there is
Right.
a more insightful way of approaching that. And I think that's DBT. It's certainly for a person who thinks a lot, like me, it to suddenly get the mirror held in front of my face and being
Yes.
explained what is actually happening. Just that
Mm-hmm.
insight can be so powerful, and that's where I guess you come in, Laura, because I mean, that's why you don't just read a book about it and start practicing it. You want to get the best out of it, and I think that's where the guidance from a professional comes in. That's where you as a psychologist come in, isn't it?
Right. Yes, that's very true.
And I think that the key thing is you don't know what you don't know. So therefore, I think that was always
Mm-hmm.
the thing for me. So if people actually want to learn more about you, I mean, you have just got a book out. Tell us more about your book.
Sure. So my book is the DBT workbook for alcohol and drug addiction.
Perfect.
And how I structure the book, Stephan, was I took each step 1 through 12, as each chapter. So step 1 is chapter 1. 1 second, my dog is like, all right, Truffles, you go. So I have step
Just
1,
just
and
one
then I
second.
have,
Stop.
oh,
Give us 5 seconds for you to
sure.
really back in so that I can cut at that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
in 5 seconds silence, then you start talking, okay?
Okay. So step 1, I have on the left side of the page, and then the DBT equivalent of tools on the right. And then I put them together throughout the chapter. I weave the step and some questions about step 1, and then some DBT skills that will help us address our powerless and unmanageability, maybe in a better way. And then step 2, you know, came to believe. So here's step 2 on the left, and the right is some DBT skills to help us further do a deeper dive into step 2.
Nice.
And the DBT skills actually throughout the book help those in recovery to do a deeper dive with each of those steps. And it adds to our toolbox. You know, AA has maybe 20, 30 tools. DBT has 200.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, it's been 80 years later, a lot more therapies and tools to help people with mental health issues, with living issues, have been discovered.
And that's so true. And let's go back. We are not speaking against AA or against a 12-step program whatsoever. We are just saying that ultimately, that's right. There is more to life than just the AA framework or a 12-step framework. I love the 12-step framework. I mean, that's that framework. Oh yeah, there's a framework out there. I mean, that's the reason I wrote my Steps to Sobriety, which is my book where I
Oh,
looked at the 12 steps, but in a modern approach. I put some
oh,
modern language to
interesting.
it, and to actually allow people to sort of maybe move away from the kind of dusty church basements where somehow religion gets pushed down our throat. That's actually not
Mhm.
really what the 12-step program is about. So therefore,
Right,
I
right.
I put it into modern terms. But in
Oh,
my
I
own
definitely want to check it out.
in my own experience, I have gone through the 12 steps, but nowadays, when I compare the 12 steps to what I'm actually doing nowadays, I have moved on. I have now different needs to
Mhm.
manage me and bring me forward. And
Right.
that is, I guess, where DBT comes in. I guess I'm practicing probably a lot of DBT without knowing it. So here
Right.
you go. But this is basically a new framework where
Huh.
people can gain new insights about themselves, and maybe with those insights, maybe seek more specialized care if that is required.
Right.
Maybe they've begun to realize that maybe there was more trauma there in the past that had not been yet dealt with appropriately, and etc. So
Exactly.
it is an opportunity for you to explore yourself and have a searchlight into the deep dark nooks and crannies in your head, with the question is, how can we live a life that is worthwhile living? And I think that is,
Yes.
if we approach it from that point of view, that is, I think, really, Laura, where you and your book come in. And if
Mm,
people want to
thank
know
you.
more about you, where can they find you?
So, good question. They could find me at my website at Laura Petracek, PhD.com. I hopefully you could spell this out in your you will.
Absolutely, absolutely, guys.
Okay.
Look down
Um,
there into the description of the YouTube video. It's a
um,
beautiful name, Petracek. Oh, that just
oh,
rings off
thank
my
you.
bell. But yeah, if unless you've got an interest in European history, you probably don't know how to write. So look down there into the description of the YouTube video. All her social media handles are there,
Yes.
and
Okay, good. My social media handles and of course the DBT workbook for alcohol and drug addiction, and also my first book, the anger workbook for women.
oh, should be mandatory reading as far as
Yeah.
most men are concerned.
Well, I think in women too, to tell you the truth.
And
Yeah.
we all need to learn about that, because
Mhm.
anger and all those negative emotions, God, they can hold us hostage
Yes.
until we actually free ourselves by learning more about them, by seeing
Mhm.
them as messengers that things are not right within your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you start gaining those insights, suddenly you're no longer a slave to your emotions, and
Mm,
that's powerful. That's beautiful.
exactly. Yeah.
Laura, you're an amazing woman. Thank you very much. I mean, you have done, you must have helped hundreds and probably thousands of people over the decades of you, or doing direct face-to-face treatments. But now for you to actually put those things in writing and therefore expose a much larger clientele to the ways of improving yourself, that's gorgeous. So congratulations on your
Well,
book. And
thank you, Stephan.
absolutely. So, and
Appreciate
I
it.
know, having written books, there is a lot of work behind it and a lot of
Oh, yeah.
insights and personal things. So, it is beautiful. I will actually will buy your book, and
Oh, thank you.
oh hell yes, and I will actually, more importantly, go through it, not just have it sitting in somewhere nice to hold other books up, but actually rather see what the lessons are that I can still learn. I'm
Hmm.
sure that there will be one insight after the other just waiting to come out. And that's so
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
You, even if you think you know about something, the moment you are actually taking it serious and going through it again, you will learn so much more. And
Exactly.
I can't wait. I can't wait to become a better person as than the guy who woke up this morning. And if I achieve that, if I learn something new about me, then this is a good day. So Laura,
Very good day.
Laura, you're an amazing woman. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank
coming
you,
onto my
Stephan.
show and sharing.
And thank you so
about
much for
DBT.
having me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you look after yourself, and you guys out there, look after yourself and really live with passion. What will you do right now when you stop this interview? What can you do to make you a better person? Maybe rehydrate, maybe stretch yourself, maybe find your significant other and give him a big kiss. And if it's your dog, just be careful what he kissed before. Maybe modulate that a little bit, but go out there and take action and make this your day. Okay. Look after yourselves. Bye.
Bye, Stephan. Thank you again.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.